So remember, if you feel like you don't need these quotes explained, there will be a link in the description to just the quotes, so you don't have to listen to me explain it if you don't feel that's necessary. Here we see the board, firstly from 2015 on the left and 2016. So the theme we're looking at is justice and morality. Back in 2015, they obviously thought it had everything to do with Tom, and all their quotes are heading in that direction. Back in 2016, which is this year, so it's not back at all, there's a little bit more of a mix, but still it's mostly focused on Tom. So remember, if you pick justice as your theme, you're going to want to have read part 2 of the book really thoroughly and know all the ins and outs of what happens to Tom and what everyone feels about him before and after and during the trial. So, the student essay created question is, Harper leaves To Kill a Mockingbird is full of examples of injustice. Discuss. So this is a very easy yes or no question, which allows you to actually form a really solid opinion. Do you think it's full of examples of injustice, or are there also examples of justice mixed in throughout? Personally, I would say it's a mixture of both, but the main prevailing theme would be injustice in my mind. And to talk about this, you're going to want to talk about Tom Robinson, who's definitely an example of injustice, Arthur Boo Radley, who you could say is an example of both, where initially he's disrespected by the town and towards the end he's protected by the town in a surprising twist ending. Bob Ewell, is his treatment unjust, or is he a person that deserves that sort of treatment? That's for you to decide. The second question is, in Harper leaves To Kill a Mockingbird, is justice served in Maycomb? Discuss with reference to the trial and other key scenes. So again, this one's leaning more towards the court case rather than the broader strokes of the other question. So you'll definitely be wanting to talk about Tom Robinson, Arthur Boo Radley, Bob Ewell. You could maybe even talk about Mayella and how her involvement affects the justice of the trial. So the evidence listed here is quite limited. We can talk about Boo Radley's punishment as a young child. We can talk about Tom Robinson's trial. We can talk about Boo Radley being allowed to go free, even though he's murdered someone. And lastly, Tom Robinson being shot 17 times while trying to escape from jail. So this is quite a limited question. If you pick this one, it's forcing you quite strongly towards part 2 of the book and towards Tom Robinson. Alright, so the quotes to use. Yeah, but Atticus aims to defend him. That's what I don't like about it. And this relates to the way the town is racist and judges Atticus on his morality, even though it's one of the more pure elements in the book. People generally see what they look for and hear what they listen for. So again, this is, people don't necessarily do what's right, they just follow along. And they don't think too hard about what they should be doing. It ain't right, Atticus. No, son, it's not right. So this shows the way that Atticus is able to teach what's right, what's moral, and also what's just to his children, but that's not necessarily affected in the world that they move into themselves. A court is only as sound as its jury, and a jury is only as sound as the men who make it up. So this is by contrast to the earlier quote, this shows the way that the town doesn't really reflect the values that Atticus has instilled in his children and what he would like them to have. No, sir, I'd have to face up to what I didn't do. So this is definitely justice. Tom is saying that he knew he was going to get into trouble no matter what. And this is in response to someone asking, why did you run? And he says, I was worried about being basically tried and arrested and jailed for things that I didn't do, based on the assumption that I'm an African American man. Tom was a dead man the minute Mayella Ewell opened her mouth and screamed. So just like Tom says in the above quote, this one shows he is genuinely correct, and the history of this time will show that if an African American man arrived in court, he was almost guaranteed not to leave alive or without a very strict, often death penalty. Judge Taylor was polling the jury. Guilty, 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 guilty. This isn't a great quote, since you can probably just write yourself that Tom Robinson was found guilty, but if you feel it necessary, you could show that it was a unanimous decision. Hecate says, Mr. Finch, there's just some kind of men you have to shoot before you can say Heidi to them. Even then, they ain't worth the bullet it takes to shoot him. So this is Hecate the sheriff, towards the very end of the novel, talking to Atticus about the fact that he thinks that Bob Ewell is basically scum or garbage, and it would have been better to have just shot him right at the start, and then none of these problems would have happened. It doesn't mention the hypocrisy of the fact that Tom Robinson is probably the best kind of man, whereas Bob Ewell is the worst. But ultimately both of them end up dead, one stabbed while one is shot 17 times. So I guess the tricky question is, who was punished? And good luck writing an essay using these quotes, this evidence, and these questions provided from the students of previous years.